right, Mr. Chairman, I believe this is all of our in-person attendees, and we have both commissioners that are going to be online, are online. So let's go ahead and run through the agenda real quick. Pretty full one tonight. Something to note, items A, B, and C at the beginning of the agenda. Those are revised findings. So those are not public hearings. But they do require a motion and a vote on each one as to whether or not you accept the revised findings. It's not whether you agree with the decision, it's whether the findings accurately reflect the commission's decision.
And those need to be each individual rather than piling them into a consent?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Ed, is that accurate? We want those individually, the revised findings. I mean, it's probably cleanest, and it's not a big deal to just do them one at a time.
Okay. So there's no reconsideration, so there is no opening for testimony or public
Right.
input or, okay.
Right. After these findings are adopted, then the appeal period opens up, and that's when someone could request reconsideration.
Gotcha.
Item number 1, we will hear. Item number 2, we will hear. And there was late correspondence received on item number 2. Should have been distributed to you. Item number 3, we will hear. Item number 4, we will hear. Item number 5, we will hear. Item number 6, we would propose for the consent agenda. And item number 7, we would propose for the consent agenda. There was late correspondence received on that one as well.
I had a question for Richard on number 6.
If you have a question, and considering Richard's not here, we should probably just pull it and hear it. If it's is it of substance?
It was about the conditions. It says like he would need to be approved about the sighting if there is historic sightings. I was just wondering if he was going to make a site visit to kind of to make that determination.
We can get some clarification from Richard on that, I think, without needing to pull it and hear it. If it's just a clarification on the condition, we
Okay.
could even do that at the beginning of the agenda so that applicant isn't sitting around waiting all night.
Okay, sounds good.
And with that, any questions, any changes to the 2 items proposed for consent? Other beyond that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think while we're in work session, we did want to bring up something about our quorum call. Sometimes it's like really late before we're determining quorum.
It is.
And I wonder if that's really fair. I mean, as a commissioner, there's a lot of work to do to prepare for the meeting. And then also for applicants to like kind of be up in the air so close to when the meeting's
Sure.
happening, whether or not we are actually going to be meeting. I don't know if the Idaho State Open Meeting Act or whatever addresses this any, but can quorum call, if we know we don't have a quorum by like Friday afternoon, that would be, the end of the business day before our meeting. Is there some way to kind of move that up or something that we can change about the process?
I'll make a couple comments about that. I don't believe there's anything in the Idaho State Code or our ordinance about when quorum needs to be called. We call quorum, we make the decision as late as possible because canceling a meeting is a rather big deal.
Sure.
I mean, people have a lot of financial interest riding on these meetings. If they're delayed a month, it's pretty significant. So we want to really be sure we can't hold the meeting. I will say though, that if we knew for a fact we weren't going to hold the meeting, like let's say on Thursday, we know we don't have quorum, we would certainly let you know.
Mhm.
And same thing if we have quorum, we're going to let you know as soon as we know. The problem is when commissioners don't respond, frankly, I mean,
Yeah.
sorry to be frank, but that's true. When folks don't respond, we don't know. And that's when we have to wait to let people know. But we'll certainly make the call as soon as we're certain one way or the other.
Yeah, and perhaps that is then on the commission to be far more proactive or responsive when that quorum call goes out, just because it leaves a lot of people hanging.
I'd say that's fair.
Okay.
Can I comment on that? Could
Yeah.
the city staff be a little bit more proactive, like on Thursday, give a commissioner a call asking if they're going to be able to make the
We-
meeting, so we're not
Yeah.
waiting for the last minute. Cause there, I mean, if you have to get a pet sitter or you have to get a child care or anything like that,
I think that's totally fair. We could make a phone call at the end of the previous week. We do send out email reminders, but not everyone is always on email. So that's fair. We could make a phone call. If we haven't heard from someone, we could make a phone call at the end of the week. Yeah, definitely.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, with that, we'll get started here in about 9 minutes.
Great. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Chairman, it's 6 o'clock. If you're ready, we can go ahead and get started. Good evening and welcome to the Boise City Historic Preservation Commission public hearing. A few things to start out with for tonight's proceedings. Everyone from the public entering the hearing virtually has been automatically muted and cannot speak. As the item you're interested in comes up for discussion, you will be called upon and unmuted. There's a chat function in Zoom. It is not part of the record and should only be used if technical difficulties arise. Our procedures for public hearings begin with a presentation from the planning team, then we'll go to the applicant and the representative of the Registered Neighborhood Association, followed by questions from the commission. After that, we will proceed to public testimony, starting with those who are in person, then who signed up on the sign-in sheet, and then anyone else who raises their hand, virtually or in person. If you're attending through your telephone, you can type in *9 to raise your hand. Each member of the public is allowed up to 3 minutes for testimony. We are strict with this time as it is limited in city code. Finally, the applicant is allowed 5 minutes for rebuttal, after which the hearing will be closed and the commission will deliberate and render a decision. And with that, Mr. Chair, you have the floor.
Thank you. We are citizen volunteers appointed by the mayor and approved by the city council. Any decision made tonight may be appealed to the city council, provided that the appeal is filed within 10 days of this hearing. In order to file an appeal, you must have given written or oral testimony at tonight's meeting. So that's why it's important to give your name and address when you testify tonight. We utilize a consent agenda. That means if the applicant agrees with the staff report and if there is no public opposition, the item will be placed on the consent agenda. All items that are placed on the consent agenda are approved with one motion without further public comment. For items not on the consent agenda, we will hold a full public hearing in the order just detailed a few minutes ago with staff, applicant, neighborhood association, and then the public testimony. Thank you all for attending tonight. And clerk, will you please call the roll?
Maroney. Montoto.
Here.
Malloy.
here,
Otter. Parks.
Here.
Owens. Here. Sales.
Here.
Moore. 5 present, 3 absent.
And that is a quorum? Correct. We have a quorum. So we're off. Here we go. First up on the agenda is minutes acceptance. We have the minutes from the commission meeting on June 24th and the work session on that same date. Are there any corrections or modifications to those? Otherwise, I'd accept a motion to accept.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move to approve the June 24th hearing minutes and work session minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner Montoto.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Malloy. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Montoto.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye,
Parks.
Aye.
Owens.
Abstain.
Sales.
Aye.
All in favor. Motion carries.
Thank you. Next up on the agenda is creation of our consent agenda. We have 2 items that have been potentially proposed for consent agenda, items 6 and 7 on our agenda. First up, item number 6, DRH 24-00206 at 1519 North 24th Street. I believe Commissioner Malloy may have a question for staff.
yeah, I just wanted to clarify, it says in the packet that you will review to see if the historic siding is still underneath the metal siding, and if it's salvageable or you could reuse it. That they would have to get that approved by you. Would you be making a site visit to do that?
That is a probable, a likely outcome. Photographic evidence could be another way that it could be determined what is uncovered and discovered upon the removal of the material.
Okay, thank you.
And is the applicant for this item present? Great, thank you. Are you in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report? Terms and conditions in the staff report, they would have been listed in the staff report for the project. They're on the screen. Are you familiar with those? Those look familiar. So it sounds like no one has seen staff reports or recommendations. Okay. Okay. So rather than putting you on the spot to make a decision at this moment, we'll go ahead and hear, we'll hear all items then. We won't put anything on the consent agenda if no one has seen staff report as yet. Is that fair? Okay. All right, very good. We will move forward into our agenda then. Next up, we have we have revised findings to hear from 3 cases that we heard at our last month's meeting. We need to vote on those as a commission individually. First up is DRH 24-00184 at 1620 North 5th Street with revised findings. Is there a motion to approve those revised findings? I
motion to approve the revised findings for DRH 24-00184 at 1620 North 5th Street.
Thank you, Commissioner
Second.
Boyd. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All, clerk, would you please call the roll?
Montoto,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Parks,
Aye.
Owens. Aye. Sales,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Great, thank you. Next up, revised findings for DRH 24-00173 at 1319 North 23rd Street. Is there a motion? I guess I should also ask if there's discussion, but typically there would not be. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion. I motion to approve the revised findings for DRH 24-00173 at 1319 North 23rd Street.
Thank you, Commissioner Malloy. Is there a
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Owens. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Montoto,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Parks,
Aye.
Owens. Aye. Sales,
Aye. all
all in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. And the third and final revised findings for this month, DRH 24-00013 at 1920 North 13th Street.
I'll make a motion. I motion to approve the revised findings for DRH 24-00013 at 1920 North 13th Street.
Thank you, Commissioner Malloy.
I second.
Thank you, Commissioner Owens. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Montoto,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Parks,
Aye.
Owens. Aye. Sales,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. All right. Now on to our first case for hearing this evening. DRH 24-00133 at 2421 West Ellis Avenue. Staff? Richard?
The applicant had previously proposed to add a covered front porch with a shed roof across the majority of the front facade where a porch did not previously exist. The facade of the structure was proposed to be modified with new doors, new windows, and new siding at the previous June HPC hearing. In response to the deferral at that meeting, staff has been in communication with the applicant and has determined that the structure has been thoroughly modified since the original construction, and evidence of that modification has been provided to the commission as a memo at the beginning of the project report. In regards to the deferral to this hearing, the motion from that deferral was to defer DRH 24-00133 at 2421 West Ellis Avenue to work with staff on finding appropriate materials for siding and windows and removing the front porch from the project and other recommendations that staff has. Here's the excerpt from the correspondence from staff to the applicant providing the Sanborn map, which indicates that the portion of to the left of the gable fronted portion of the house was not there up until at least 1956. This is an excerpt from a letter from a neighbor who grew up in the house and recounts modifications their parents made in the 1970s, including the addition and single paned replacement windows, as well as describing that the planter walls were added by a subsequent owner. This is the aerial map indicating where the property is located on the north end between 24th and 25th Streets on the south side of Ellis Avenue. This is the site plan. Here's a basement plan and first floor plan. At the bottom is the existing elevation, and above that is the proposed elevation showing a proposed covered porch and dormer to the right, as well as calling out the retention of siding and installation of paired and single double hung windows. Here are the remaining elevation drawings and photographs of the subject property. The structure was classified as contributing to the district. Staff has determined that even though it is classified as contributing, the level of modification that has occurred to it in the past, that being an addition as outlined in the memo, as well as fixed replacement windows, offer an allowance for the modifications as proposed in this circumstance. The siding will be retained instead of being replaced as was previously proposed. Staff feels the replacement of the non-historic fixed glass windows with double hung windows is an appropriate approach, as is the proposed door. Based on the above analysis, staff recommends approval, and I will stand for any questions.
Thank you, Richard. Are there questions for staff from the commission?
I guess I have a question for you, Richard. So we say this is a contributing structure to the historic district, but with all of these modifications and all the proposed modifications, do you think it'll be contributing after the project is?
Considering how much it was modified and for whatever reason it was considered contributing in the original survey, certain, definitely, if we look at a minimalist traditional house having fixed plate glass windows, that's less contributing to the era or the history of that house, that style. That did not exist at the time that that was built. So that would be an improvement to go with double hungs. It probably had paired double hungs and non-paired double hung windows. Historically could have had casement. There's a few other options of what it could have had. Could have had is something we don't know. So upon a resurvey, it's hard to tell whether it would be the classification would change or not. Staff feels that this is an improvement to the modifications that happen. And for, like I say, for whatever reason, it was considered a contributing structure during the survey. Staff just feels that these are improvements.
Do you think, they talked to the neighbor who used to live there? Growing up, my family took lots of photos of us outside of our house. Do you think the neighbor could supply photos of what windows were there, so we're not just guessing what type of windows were there and maybe putting in the correct windows based on photographs?
That could be a possibility if the commission chooses to delay or have this deferred for that purpose. That is something that could happen. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Any further questions for staff from the commission? Great, thank you. Is the applicant present? Hi, please give us your name and address.
I'm Jeremy Dancer, 8370 West Creek Runway. And I'm in agreement with everything Richard has said, so I guess I'll take any questions from you.
Any questions for the applicant from the commission?
So you had the letter from the previous owner. Did she supply any photographs of the
No.
house in her
She did not.
correspondence? Did you
She
ask
didn't.
her for any photographs of the house in that exchange at all?
No, we did not.
Okay, thank you.
So are you just after proving what the original windows were, or?
Yeah, so if there are photos, I think, you know, from a historic preservation perspective, we don't like to guess what the windows were, but
But
actually
you're
look.
okay with the cheap vinyl?
No,
picture
I'm not,
windows
I'm
that
not
most
okay.
home-
I'm just saying that if we're making an effort to put in appropriate windows, it'd be good to put in the correct appropriate windows, that's all.
Okay, and what if there's no way to prove what they were?
Then we go with what the staff recommended.
Okay.
Any further questions for the applicant from the commission?
Could you speak to the shed roof that you're planning to put on, like that front porch addition? Is that still included or is that no longer included?
Yeah, that's included,
Okay.
yes.
Could you explain the purpose of adding that? Did you have anything in mind for that addition?
Well, the homeowners just would like to be able to sit out front and interact with neighbors and, help insulate the house. Use their porch more than 4 months out of the year. That's the biggest purpose.
Thank you.
Great. Any further questions from the commission? Great, thank you. Anyone representing the neighborhood association?
Hi, Sandy Herman, 1404 North 7th Street. Mr. Chair and Commissioners, we think the second story addition is subtle. We are a little concerned and confused regarding the front porch. Many of our neighbors who own minimal traditional homes have been denied front porches in the past. We do not want this home to set a precedent in the neighborhood. Minimal traditional homes are an important element in the neighborhood, and we would like to see their characteristics preserved. We would like a clarifying statement from the commission or staff regarding standards for front porches. If you have any questions.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the commission for the neighborhood association? Great. Thank you. Don't have anyone on the sign-up sheet. Is there anyone online for this item? Is there anyone who did not sign up but would like to testify? Okay, the applicant, you have the opportunity to rebut, make final closing statement if you like.
I guess the only thing I would say is this home has been modified so many times that I don't think that the front porch is going to hurt the structure. I think it'll help the structure. And the windows, high quality windows we're going to be adding will definitely help the structure. So I just hope the commission can agree with the staff.
Great.
So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that, we will close the hearing and render a decision. Open it up to the commission for comment, discussion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to open up the discussion. So the front porch is still a concern of mine, adding a front porch where we haven't historically had a front porch, even though the building has been modified. We're adding something that wasn't historically there. So I would be in favor of this application if we remove the front porch from it. And also add a stipulation that prior to going with the staff's recommendations for historic windows, that they look at photographic evidence if it's available, and then check in with staff on the appropriate windows. Those are my comments.
Mr. Chair, can I still get some clarification from staff? Staff, could I ask you, when it comes to the front porch addition, it seems like your findings indicate that that wouldn't be further reducing its historic contributing nature as insofar as it's already been slightly changed. Could you speak a little bit towards the appropriateness of the porch compared to, let's say, the windows?
Well, the fact that this, let's do this analogy. If this house had been surveyed maybe a little better the first go round, it would have been classified as a non-contributing structure due to the level of modifications. I think all staff can agree with that, and I think that most commissioners would probably agree that if this was done today, that would have been classified as a non-contributing structure. And for whatever reason, it was classified as a contributing structure. Somebody missed a tick box. Who knows what happened in 80 something, 90 something, 0 something, whenever this one was done. So in that case, we would be looking at a non-contributing structure where we give it more flexibility and leeway. And this sends by writ of how it actually presents itself in my mind and my way of looking at it is pretty close to being a non-contributing structure now. And things like front porch modifications and other things are approved. And so that's kind of why we felt that the porch is not making something that was very questionably contributing worse is not what's really happening here. It's an improvement over to the facade. And like I say, to that analogy of had it been non-contributing, which it kind of is, but isn't.
Thanks for clarifying that. Our neighborhood association was concerned about setting a precedent with the front porch, and I guess I'm concerned about that as well. If it were still considered a contributing structure and we were to add the shed roof, that would not be something you would recommend based on our historic design guidelines?
Right, a contributing structure that had integrity when it was considered contributing and still maintains its integrity, and there's no yet this happened scenario as we have with this one where it was considered contributing, but it kind of doesn't look like it even at the time of survey. But yes, with a contributing structure that had integrity at the time of listing and still maintains its integrity, we would not support the addition of a front porch. That's what makes this one particular application odd, unique, and we, as other people on the commission and other people have mentioned, some of our surveys are, we need surveys updated. Everybody's been saying that to me. Now I'll just say it out loud, but we need updated surveys so that these kinds of oddities don't pop up in the future. So we're working on getting to that point where we can have those.
Thank you. Appreciate your perspective on that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner Montoto.
if I may, I have been on this commission. This is my 10th year. And I think it's really imperative that we as a commission, in regards to the contributing status of a property, make decisions based off of the facts that we have in front of us. If we are making decisions based off of a survey that we know needs to be done, to Richard's point, we need to have these surveys updated because it does, it could really impact the decisions that we make. But unfortunately, in my opinion, the documentation that we have before us in this application states that this home is contributing. And therefore, this is a major front facade change that could ultimately affect its contributing status retention in the future. And that being said, I would not support the application as stands. However, Commissioner Malloy mentioned that she would be open to potentially making some changes. I would be open to hearing that motion. But as is, I don't think I could move forward with this application.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I can make a motion if that's the direction we're
Sure, yeah.
going.
Mhm.
So I move to approve DRH 24-00133 with the staff recommendations, but with the following stipulations added, which is not to allow the front porch addition and to look at photographs, if they are available, from the previous owners to identify the appropriate window style and to confer with staff if it differs from what he recommended.
Mr. Chair, I would second that motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Montoto,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Parks,
Aye.
Owens,
Nay.
Sales,
Aye.
4 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, DRH 24-00128 at 2200 North 20th Street. Yeah, Richard.
This is the aerial map indicating where the property is located in the north end on a northern lot split of 2200 North 20th Street at the northeast corner of the intersection with Good Street. Please note that the final address of this property and parcel is not yet known. This is the landscape plan showing trees that will be added to remediate the removals outlined in the arborist report included in the staff report. Here's the basement and first floor plan, elevations of the residence, and detached garage, and photographs of the parcel. From the top left clockwise are views of the adjacent property to the south, as mentioned at the beginning of this proposed residence, a view across the street, looking north along 20th and south along 20th. The applicant proposes to construct a new residence adjacent and nearby residences or one-story residences. The height to the roof peak is 18 feet 9.5 inches, and the width will keep it within the side yard setbacks as required by code. Therefore, the residence will be similar in height and width to buildings on the adjacent sites and block. The mass and form are compatible to residences in the vicinity and feature a porch. Materials and window openings and window types are all appropriate. The lot coverage of 39% does not exceed the guidelines. Does exceed the guidelines 35%. However, the alternative to be able to have a similarly functional residence would have required a 2-story structure, which is not compatible with the nearby residences. Building orientations complied with the guidelines. The applicant proposes to construct a garage. The garage will be substantially smaller in scale than the primary residence with a height to the roof peak of 18 feet. The proposed garage is at the rear of the property. The form and materials are similar to the primary residence. Based on the above analysis, staff recommends approval, and I will stand for any questions.
Thank you, Richard. Are there questions for staff from the commission?
I guess I have a question about tree mitigation. The new zoning code, are they required to upkeep the trees once they're planted?
Yes, yes.
And how is that enforced by the city? Just out of curiosity.
No, just it'll be standard code enforcement if it's seen that they're not upkept and are intentionally let to die. Concerned citizen that discovers that or whoever can definitely request that, and there'll be a code enforcement process as happens with structures that are modified inappropriately, et cetera, things, all these
Okay.
other things that happen.
Thank you.
Any further questions for staff?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
could you please show us the sequoia if you have any pictures of it or where it's located on the site?
I'm actually not sure which one the sequoia is because my sequoias that I'm familiar with are giant sequoias that are native and natural to the state of California. But that's the ones I've seen. But this is called a sequoia. Sorry. I don't know.
It's this one.
Okay.
The very pyramidal.
Mhm.
It's kind of in the middle.
Commissioner Owen, I looked at that too. I think it's labeled T3 in the arborist report from the um document there. Back on the back.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Sills. I appreciate that. Could we look at the site plan staff one more time?
All they proposed, yeah. Yeah. This site plan shows what will be planted. It doesn't show the trees to be removed, but the trees are roughly in that general vicinity, maybe back a little bit further.
So this sequoia sits roughly in the middle of this site, so it would.
Yeah.
There's not a great way for this project to be built to maintain,
Correct.
is what I'm seeing at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
thank you.
they're planting lots of trees for mitigation. So when we see that and we have arborist report, it's a foregone conclusion that that is appropriate. And that tree is, for my tree knowledge, because I even have the Seek app and I tried to look it up and like, which one is a sequoia and what kind is it? What is it? Was it the thinner one with the branches swooping down or the pyramid? Okay, the pyramid. So,
Yeah, there
anyway.
there are several trees in Ann Morrison Park that are a similar variety that have the same shape.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's some sort of a redwood that has sequoia as part of its Latin name. Very good.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
could you speak to the presence of other garages off in this neighborhood? Do most of the other surrounding homes have garages off the alley?
Yes, that's the feature of the north end. It should have it that way, have a detached garage generally, with alley access is desirable and referred to in the guidelines and the best way to do it.
So you would say that most of the surrounding neighbors do already have these garages, I guess was my question.
Yeah, they should. If I did an analysis, yeah, I would see that most of the properties have a rear garage and most of them have, as it is throughout the north end, rear garage access from alley.
Thank you.
Any further?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner Montoya.
I have a question for staff. Richard, can you confirm the lot size for this property?
Bear with me. It's in the staff report here we go. There it is, 4336 is a 0.1 acre parcel.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, if I can have a follow-up question. Would that be considered as a substandard lot?
That is an allowed lot. I think the minimum lot size in this zone is 3,500 square feet. So it's
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Any further questions for staff from the commission? Great. With that, is the applicant present?
It's almost called Mike again. Apparently not.
Okay. Can we still proceed with hearing the case without the applicant present? So is there a
Mr. Chairman, in light of the applicant not being present, I would recommend postponing this until the end of the hearing and see if we can get a hold of them or see why they are not present.
okay. So we will pause this item and come back to it at the end of our meeting. All right. So with that, gosh, there's all sorts of weird stuff tonight. How did I end up being chair tonight? Wow. With that, we will move on to our next item, DRH 24-00152 at 412 West Reswigi Street.
I need a sip of water before I start. Maybe it's the smoke that's responsible for all this. Anyway. This is the aerial map indicating, that I haven't turned the page. This is the aerial map indicating where the property is located in the north end on the north side of West Rescue. I'm still working on that pronunciation, between 4th and 5th Street.
You and me both.
Yeah, I think everybody is. You can live here 20 years and say it 3 different ways. Here's the existing and proposed floor plan showing what has been built internally. Here is a photographic elevation of the primary facade with notes added indicating what materials have been used. And here are additional photographic elevations with further notes regarding the siding. And further photographs of the house's front facade showing the work that has been done. Additional photos of the same. Photographs of the rear outbuildings. And more photographs of the outbuildings from the alley and photographs of the residences in the vicinity. The applicant enclosed the entire front porch, which was historically an open porch that at some later point had windows installed in the open portion. See the Sanborn map and street view image below. This historical feature should have been retained, but was instead obliterated, giving the front facade a false sense of history and drastically modifying the character defining facade without the applicant seeking planning approval or a permit in advance. The siding material they used where they infilled the front porch has a faux wood graining, which is generally not appropriate per the guidelines. The application has also replaced some windows with aluminum clad wood windows, but like the other work done to this property, it was done without obtaining a certificate of appropriateness or building permit. It is unknown if these windows replaced existing historic windows. Based on the above analysis, staff recommends denial, and I will stand for any questions from the commission.
Thank you, Richard. Are there questions for staff from the commission?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
do you know when this work took place by any chance?
This work would have been sometime in the spring. I'd have to dig deep to give you an idea of when
That's good enough. for
exact
me.
dates, but it
Yeah.
was months ago. And this started with a code violation
Mm.
process.
Thank you.
Us finding out about it.
Any further questions for staff?
Mr. Jarvis, to follow up on what Commissioner Owens just said. So there was no permit, no certificate of appropriateness, they just were going for it and were turned in by code enforcement.
Yes, somebody brought it up to code enforcement, and a code enforcement case was started, and that started this process for a certificate of appropriateness to retroactively have the work that they did approved or heard.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner.
Just to clarify, the scope of work was that they enclosed that front porch with the siding and then replaced, was it just the windows that were in the front porch, or was it other windows throughout the house that were also replaced?
Other windows throughout the house. There are windows along the side elevations, the portion that's brick that show the replaced windows.
Thank you. And then was there any work that happened with the outbuildings? Or you were just showing those for reference?
Just showing for reference, as I
Okay.
do with all applications. Nothing is known about work that was done with the outbuildings.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any further questions for staff? Great. Thank you, Richard. Is the applicant present? Please come forward, state your name and address.
Ryan Meyer, 301 East Bower Street, Meridian, Idaho, 83642. So when we first bought it, we called in. We were told we could change out the windows. So we proceeded to do that. The contractor was supposed to be getting the permits for the porch to be able to get that approved. And then he kept going. And then that's where I had to jump in since I'm the homeowner and take over. So it was already enclosed. It's all, the neighbor said it was enclosed in like 1980. So with windows, we didn't change anything on the original portion of the house. We just were taking some of the windows out on the porch and for a bathroom. So all of that is, we did put the siding, but the siding above it, all that stuff was already there. The windows were already there. We removed a couple of the aluminum windows.
Okay. Questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So you said that your contractor was supposed to be in charge of getting all of those permits.
Yeah.
Did you call in and ask about the windows or they did?
No, we called in when we first bought the house and they said it was non-contributing. As long as we kept with the wood clad windows, we could replace them. So we went with that, and then we got hit with the code violation, and the contractor had been doing the stuff, and we're like, well, on the rest of the windows on the house, because we didn't change any sizes, we just replaced them with the same size. And that's where they said, no, this is contributing. Although most of the entire structure is not contributing, but so we stopped there and we jumped in and I took over and started getting the permit.
Mr. Chair. So you started to put the siding in after your contractor left. Is that the correct timeline, or your contractor started putting siding on over the windows that you took out?
Yes, yep. So he started doing all of that. So he was supposed to be working through the permitting process. He did the siding before he got the permits, and then we got the code violation. And that's where we found out that it was contributing, even though we were told initially when we called in, when we bought it, that it was non-contributing. It was in historic district, but non-contributing.
Mr. Chair. I think just last question. So you were putting a bathroom in, is that right?
Yeah.
In one of these front corners here?
Yes, yeah. So we wanted the front to be the same. So if we remove the window on one side on the front porch, we didn't want to have window on one side. So we figured, our thought was, okay, let's remove both of them.
Okay, so on one side there's a bathroom and then on the other side you just enclosed it so it matched, right?
Yeah,
Okay, and there's still a full bathroom installed now on the
Mhm.
front of one side?
yeah.
Okay, just clarifying. Thank you.
Further questions for the applicant?
Commissioner, I have a question
Yes.
for the applicant. Is the contractor still involved, or have you guys parted ways?
No, he's still involved. I just took over and got the permits. So we stopped, got the permits, and then started again. So we were able to continue with getting the because he hadn't done the permits on the inside too. So we got the permits on the inside and did 2 different permits. So we were allowed to continue on the inside until this was approved.
Because the first thing that would happen when you applied to, if you did an application to do the windows, they would have told you that you had to conform with certain things. The city would have told you when you went in for your permit, wouldn't they? So I'm just kind of curious, are you going to get a permit because you got caught in code enforcement?
So he was supposed to be getting a permit because we
Mhm.
was in the historic district to begin with. So when he didn't, and then it got code enforcement, that's when, like I said, that's when I jumped in and started taking over to get the permit.
Gotcha. And are you working with a design professional, or are you doing your own plans?
No, it was our own. Nothing was really being changed. It was just that front was being changed. So we didn't need to have a professional.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions for the applicant from the commission?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, please.
And to the applicant, I apologize. I don't for so many questions. But my question is, when did you close on this property?
February?
And Mr. Chairman, if I may have a follow-up question.
Okay.
When you were looking at the property, obviously you knew it was a historic district. Did your realtor, or when you went to title, were you informed of the fact that you purchased a contributing home in a historic district?
Well, no, they didn't say it was contributing. So we called and they said it was in the historic district, but non-contributing. And we asked, then that's when we asked about the windows, and they said, yeah, as long as it's the same, it's a wood clad window, you can replace the windows. So that's where we proceeded to get the windows for the house without changing any of the sizes, just replacing them.
Right, I understand, but I guess my question is, were you informed by your realtor or when you went to title, by the title agent, that you were purchasing a contributing home in a historic district?
I do not think so. I do not remember that.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions for the applicant from the commission? Great, thank you. Is there anyone from the neighborhood association wishing to testify?
Sandy Herman, 1404 North 7th Street. Mr. Chair and Commission, we are in full support of staff's findings. We are disappointed that local contractors who should and do know better continue to practice this practice of doing business outside the process. It is also deeply concerning that when neighbors ask questions on site, contractors seem to feel no remorse for their deceptions. Unfortunately, this project was started without going through the proper historic and city permitting. We would like to see the open porch facade returned. The wood grain siding is very noticeable from the street and should be remediated. We talked previously this evening about not adding porches to minimalist traditional houses, and we feel it's equally important for the neighborhood to preserve porches that exist on contributing houses. That's it. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions for the neighborhood association? Great, thank you. Not yet, but you will have an opportunity. Yes, great. I have one person on my sign-up sheet, Victoria McDonald. Is there anything else you wish to add to testimony? Please, if you're going to speak, please come up to the mic and name and address. So,
Yeah, so want my name and address?
yes, please.
Victoria McDonald, 3066 East Leslie Drive in Meridian.
Great, thank you.
So it sounded like we added that front porch, but all that was already existing. So is that what you guys are understanding? Or maybe what she understand? Yeah, so that was already there. None of that was modified.
Okay.
Okay.
Any further questions? So
If
No.
there's going to be testimony, it needs to be through the microphone at the front. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I couldn't hear any of that. I don't know
Yeah,
if we're
you're-
becoming that part of the record.
we're remedying that. So is there anyone else wishing to testify on this item? Yes, please step forward and state your name and address.
Colleen Parker. I'm located at 415 Residue Street, so I'm across the street. I have pretty much the same concerns. It's obviously been noticed, so, but that it started early, we knew that it was for sale. We actually looked at the property and we did have it inspected and we spoke with the real estate agent. And part of the reason we didn't proceed with the purchase is because it was contributing. We were notified that it was contributing, and knowing what would have to be done to rectify all those things, we knew what it would entail and how much it would cost. We've been in the north end across the street for 35 years. So everybody's well aware of what's supposed to happen and what a contributing property is and how easy it is to find. I did call the commission to see what was happening with the property, knowing that it was moving forward and we hadn't had a hearing yet. And so when I did that, they gave me all the information, what was contributing, what was expected. So, and I obviously wasn't the only one to call. So I just, seeing all that work, and again, the siding is not correct. It's fabricated and it's got wood texture on it. They've enclosed the whole porch so that it's closed in. It's not open like it was, because it was just glass. But again, I think there's a more appropriate way to get that porch back to a more historic porch for that home. So.
A question for you, as the neighbor who has lived across the street for 35 years, can you clarify what the condition of the porch was? That's something that's confusing in my mind.
So the porch was glass and it had glass doors. And so those doors have been taken down and there are now big wood paneled 2 double doors in lieu of the glass enclosed porch. So it looks like a big heavy wood double door.
And to the sides where the siding has been installed,
Mhm.
was that,
That was all glass.
was, okay,
And so now it's the faux wood panel.
thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to testify or make comments on this application?
Mr. Chairman, we do have a hand raised online, Ben Wakefield.
Very good. Mr. Wakefield.
Can you hear me?
Barely, but yes.
Nice. All right. I apologize if I'm out of turn, but this is going back to 2200 20th Street, and I'm the owner / builder on that project. So if it's my turn, great. If not, you can continue on your meeting.
We're going to come back and catch you at the end of our meeting. Thank you for joining us.
Great. Took me a minute to log in. I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to testify at 412 West Rescue? Great. Thank you. Now the applicant, you may step forward and make rebuttal.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't, there were windows. It wasn't, the whole thing was all glass. The whole thing was glass. There were windows. So front door, window on each side. And then it went back in and there was a window and a window. It wasn't all glass the whole way. That's what it makes it sound like.
Okay.
So in that, the neighbor to the west of me, she came to the our meeting and she said this was all enclosed in 1980. So she's like, I have no problem with any of this stuff.
So it was not an open porch, but it was a glassed porch.
With it had windows, so it had siding and stuff, but it had windows, a window here, and then it goes back and then here, and there's a window on each side, and then it goes in.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Are you positioned for a follow-up question?
I don't have a question. I have something to add though.
Okay, great. So you have a picture. Sure. I think that I would like to see that. Great.
Commissioners, I can't see a photo.
That's true.
Yeah. why don't you
So-
have staff pull this up for us so that we can all look at it?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Owen.
Just 1 second, Commissioner Montoto. I'm going to try and get this pulled up so you can see it.
Oh, thank you so much.
Richard or Josh, if you could just type into Google 412 Rescue, it pulls up the Zillow and it has all of the pictures. Could you share your screen so that we could look at that? I know it's a little unconventional, but I think it would be helpful if we could enter that into the record. And if you just type the address in, it pulls it up for you. Great. Thank you so much. There's a few pictures of it that we can look at that show the front view and then some other side views of that front porch.
Interior view of the porch. So now you can see that there was on that side. Oh, I'm sorry, that back porch.
That's
I
the
went,
back,
went to,
yeah.
sorry. Yeah. There's a bit of an angle view. And then you can see, well, the scroll is getting weird, but there's the side glass panels and the glass panel, it was basically the places that were open and when it was an original open porch were filled in with glass panels on all sides. At the point in time when they purchased the property, this is what it would have looked like. And there's an outlet. Oh, sorry.
Thank you for pulling that up, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Commissioner Montoto, are you able to see that okay? Is that giving you some context?
That's perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay, with that, just to be clear, the public testimony is now closed and the commission will render a decision. Questions, discussion?
Mr. Chair, I'll open discussion. I support staff's recommendations. This house actually would have been a great project house. It'd be easy to fix that front porch back to how it was. And if they would have went through the correct process with the city, I'm sure Richard would have pointed them in the correct direction versus what we are seeing now in the staff report. So I'm going to recommend denial and stay with the staff.
Thank you. Further comment?
Could I ask, Mr. Chair, could I ask a question of staff?
Sure.
I haven't seen this much, but is there any privacy glass options that maintain historic integrity?
Like if you have a porch that was not filled in, are you asking if it would be, staff would feel it's appropriate to infill it with some glass or what is because if it was not enclosed, any kind of enclosure, I can't imagine any type of enclosure that would be appropriate.
I guess my question is, now there's a bathroom there. So unless they completely take out a bathroom, if they were to put glass back in and return it to not its, original historic state, but the state it was in when they bought it, and there's glass back in there, there would need to be privacy glass put in around the bathroom. So I'm wondering if there's any treatment for windows that's considered historically appropriate that uses some type of like frosting or anything like that.
Frosting is generally not seen in historic structures, with rare exceptions. Sometimes front doors would have had like a light panel that would have had a etched or frosted appearance, but generally that would not be considered. I mean, that's a case by case, and whatever comes after this as a revision is when we'll cross that bridge when we get to that. But just in general, there could be a possibility for frosting it or finding some other way to maintain privacy in that area.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Further discussion or a motion?
Commissioner, I have a question, I guess would be for Mr. Jarvis. I'm assuming then if they got red tagged from other code enforcement, I'm just curious what is within the purview of our function here as far as, I guess, sort of to Commissioner Owen's point of remediation. I mean, obviously the siding is not appropriate, even without the bathroom. I'm just sort of wondering, has there been any talk from other city departments about what they're wanting to see?
Not necessarily other departments, but if the commission's decision is in sync with staff, then we will work with them just to determine what the next phases are.
Commissioner, so yeah, like Richard said, if this application is denied, the next step would be the ordinance outlines it as a premature alterations report that we would prepare. It would outline what was done, what could be done to bring the structure back into compliance. It would involve some negotiations with the owner about next steps, like how do we return this to an acceptable condition. That action would then come before the commission for approval.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just kind of thinking about that bathroom window. I mean, if they would have gone through the processes that you go through, then that bathroom never would have been put in because you can't close the window. You can't close the opening. So I'm just, it's sort of but now it's there. And so I'm just wondering you know, if we say you can't alter the facade, then now they have this bathroom situation. It's just kind of a sticky spot.
Right. But then perhaps that's not a problem that we need to be solving.
Correct, yes. Because they wouldn't have gotten a permit because it would have never passed historic and they wouldn't have been here.
Correct.
Right, so. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Montoto,
I'd like to make a motion.
please.
I move to deny DRH 24-00152 based on staff's analysis and findings contained within the staff report.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Staff, will you, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Montoto,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Parks,
Aye.
Owens,
Aye.
Sales,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Great. Thank you. Next item, DRH 24-00165 at 820 North 19th Street.
This is the aerial map indicating where the property is located in the north end in the south, on the south side of Sherman Street between 18th and 19th Street. This is the site plan showing where an accessory dwelling unit will be located on top of the existing non-historic garage. The garage will also be extended 8 feet closer to Sherman Avenue. Here are the first and second floor plans, elevations in relation to the existing house, and other elevations, and photographs of the existing garage and residence and other homes in the vicinity. The form and materials are similar to the primary residence, though differentiation is preferred in additions or new construction. Given how recent this residence's construction was, staff feels there's not a need to differentiate in this particular circumstance. Materials to be used are conditioned to ensure that they meet our guidelines. The proposed structure is over 1,000 square feet and is over 22 feet in height, and yet complies with the full setback requirements of the zone as a variance was approved. Based on the above analysis, staff recommends approval, and I will stand for any questions from the commission.
Thank you, Richard. Any questions for staff from the commission? Hearing none, is the applicant present? Welcome. State your name and address.
My name is Amanda Ryan, 7492 West Althea Court in Boise. So I am the designer who worked on this property, and I was able to find the report on the agenda for tonight's hearing. And I just had one kind of question or clarification on page 7 of 10. It talks about there being glass sliding doors, and we are not proposing glass sliding doors. The existing house has a set of doors that we're proposing to keep that. And then it talks about having sliding doors not be approved in the historic area, but the existing house has sliding doors all over. So we'd like to match the house in our window style, if possible.
So that's a request to deviate from staff's recommendation. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
I just want to get clarification on that because they talked about removing that, and I don't know if they're recommending to remove it from the existing house and change the existing house. That's not part of the scope, or it's worded in a weird way.
Okay.
It's item G.
Okay. We can clarify that with staff.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just to clarify with the applicant, so for the ADU, you're planning on putting in any sliding doors, or you're not planning on putting any sliding doors in?
No sliding doors.
Okay.
There's just there's a couple windows that'll be slider windows, but no sliding doors because it's on the second floor, and then you don't want to slide out to a deck.
Okay, thanks.
Any further questions for the applicant or anything else to state? Great. Thank you. The Neighborhood Association.
Sandy Herman, 1404 North 7th Street. Mr. Chair and Commissioners, we went to the neighborhood meeting for this project. This is an unusual lot with a non-conforming house. We think the applicants have been thoughtful about the design by limiting the impact on their neighbor. Windows on the south side of the ADU preserve privacy. This is a good example of creating new housing in the neighborhood with limited impact. Nina would like to remind homeowners and contractors that materials listed within the accepted plans are part of an agreed upon contract with the city. It is important to adhere to the materials as listed, as they are part of the standards in the historic neighborhood. Changing materials without consulting the city could result in fines, delays, and mitigation at the contractor or homeowners' expense. And it sounds like she's trying to clarify. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the Neighborhood Association from the Commission? Great. The only person I have signed up for this one was Amanda Ryan, the applicant. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this application? Great, thank you. Before the applicant comes back up to rebut, I'll turn to staff for the clarification that was requested on the sliding window.
Yes, I would say that you could, as part of your approval, add a condition, so to speak, that condition not have to be met in this circumstance, if you so choose. Strike it. Yeah, you could strike the commission and it'll be removed. Yeah.
Very good. There you go. Okay, I see it. Great, thank you. The applicant has the opportunity to come back up and state rebuttal or any closing comments. Great, thank you. With that, we will close the hearing and render a decision. I would open it up for discussion or motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would like to make a motion, but to preface my motion, I think that staff's presentation on this application is very thorough. I think that our project report is also very thorough. And given that there's no public opposition, I would move to approve DRH 24-00165, striking condition G based on staff's analysis and findings contained within the staff report.
Thank you, Commissioner Montoto.
I second.
Have a second from Commissioner Owens. Thank you. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Montoto,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Parks,
Aye.
Owens,
Aye.
Sales,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Great, thank you. All right, moving forward. Next item on our agenda, DRH 24-00201 at 1008 North 6th Street. Turn it over to staff for presentation.
This is the aerial map indicating where the property is located in the north end on the east side of 6th Street between Union and Thatcher Street. Here's the existing and proposed site plan showing the existing carport to be removed and the new garage with living space above it, and the existing rear addition. Here are the existing plans and the proposed plans, elevations, and perspective drawings showing the slight increase in the height of the addition. Here are photographs of the house and carport, and photographs of the existing ADU, nearby houses, and some street views. The height to the roof peak is 24 feet 9 inches. The existing residence peak is 23 feet 7 inches. Therefore, the addition is 1 foot 2 inches taller than the existing residence. However, since this addition is set back from the front facade, staff feels that the slight increase in height is acceptable. The mass and form are compatible to residences in the vicinity. Materials, window openings, and window types are all appropriate. The lot coverage will be reduced from 45 to 38%, which is only slightly over the guidelines 35%. Materials to be used are conditioned to ensure that they meet our guidelines. The applicant proposes to construct an attached garage, though the guidelines state that garages in the historic district should be detached. In this instance, staff feels that this is an acceptable approach. The site has constraints that make a detached garage unfeasible, as the existing residence and addition are so close to the rear property line. Therefore, it is not possible to detach the garage. Also, the rooms above the garage are an extension of the second-story addition that provides additional living spaces for the primary residence. These spaces need to be attached to the primary residence since they are an extension of it instead of, for example, an ADU, which should generally be separated. With that, based on this analysis, staff recommends approval, and I will stand for any questions.
Thank you, Richard. Questions for staff from the commission?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
do you know why it's slightly taller than the existing residence? Do they explain in any of their documentation?
Yeah, it needs to be taller. The applicant is here present and she'll speak to it more, but it just needs to be taller to get the living spaces to work and to have proper head height, that usual thing. It was reduced, I think it's alluded to maybe in the report, but it was reduced from, I forget how much taller it was, but about a foot two or foot something reduction is what we've gotten to get it to this point. I requested that to see how close we can get it, but so that's it. It's just to allow the proper head heights for livable space.
Thank you.
Great. Any further questions for staff? Thank you. The applicant is present.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Amy Allgaier. I live at 1402 North 22nd Street, and I'm the architect for this project. I'll jump right into Commissioner Owen's question. We did lower this after we got a request from Richard to try to get it down as much as we can. What is driving this height? We dropped it about 6 inches. What's driving the height is on the north facade, there's a dormer that has a bedroom. We have to get egress windows out of that bedroom, and for that egress window to count, the ceiling to the egress window has to be 7 feet. So that's what is driving. And if I work backward from 7 feet to the peak of the house with a 2.5, 3 and 12 slope, that's where we are.
Thank you. Any further presentation items?
No,
We'll open it up to
I
questions.
don't have
for
any
you.
more presentation, but I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Great, thank you. Any further questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair. So in reducing the size so that you could get as close as you could to 35%, what led to the additional percentage?
If we lowered the lot coverage just with the existing house, the ADU and a new garage, the garage wouldn't be big enough to be a single car garage. So we were always going to be over, to get a single car garage on the site, we were always going to be over 35%. We are reducing the lot coverage though from 43,
45 for the
44%
staff report.
down. So it's a huge improvement. That existing carport is also right on the property line. So it doesn't meet fire code. It doesn't meet setback. It's really kind of a hazard. So that's improving quite a bit. We have met that south setback and the rear setbacks that we're required to meet.
Thank you.
Further questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, I have a statement, not necessarily a question, but in all of my years on the commission, I don't think I've ever once seen a lot coverage reduction in a project. And I just want to applaud the architect and the applicant in doing that. It's very commendable.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Further questions or comments? Great, thank you. Open to the neighborhood association.
Sandy Herman, 1404 North 7th Street. Mr. Chair and Commissioners, we went to the neighborhood, that's the other one. We think this is a thoughtful redesign of pretty awkward space. We recommend down-shielded lighting and permeable paving. Nina would like to remind homeowners and contractors that materials listed within the accepted plans are part of an agreed upon contract with the city. It is important to adhere to the materials as listed, as they are part of the standards in the historic neighborhood. Changing materials without consulting the city could result in fines, delays, and mitigation at the contractor or homeowner's expense.
Thank you. Questions for the neighborhood? Great. I don't have anyone signed up. Oh, okay. Come on up. Please state your name and address.
My name is Anna Colborn. I live at 1010 North 6th Street, which is directly north of the property. So I originally attended the neighborhood meeting and raised a couple of concerns, saw the neighborhood summary, and saw that those concerns weren't mentioned or acknowledged in the feedback form. And my main concerns were kind of twofold. We purchased our home 19 years ago, and we purchased next to a single level home. So now this will be a 2-story home. There's only about a 5-foot setback to our fence line. And also that's our backyard. So this new extension will go the entire length of our backyard with a 5-foot setback. So now, first of all, we're going to have a 2-story wall immediately on our property line, basically, looking into our backyard with an unobstructed view, which was kind of an issue to me. The other big issue is that there's going to be the 2 large windows, again, that are unobstructed that look into our yard. Kind of talked to Kate and she said, oh, maybe a tree, but there's only about a 4 or 5 foot space there. So there's really not space to put a tree because we already had to take one down that was causing the same issues with damaging our roof. So I don't know if that's really an alternative. Then I looked at the renderings and kind of became a little more concerned that there are small high set windows on the south side, bedrooms. So there's 2 bedrooms there, small set windows. Our windows are long windows that will look directly into our backyard unobstructed. So obviously, some sort of change to those windows would help negatively or no longer negatively impact our privacy, maybe the same small high set windows along that line. And then another issue was that there was never a mention of changing anything downstairs. So everything that we received showed that the downstairs was remaining the same. Then when I looked at the renderings, again, I see that the downstairs is changing. Currently, when we purchased the home, there are 3 windows that were their family room. We knew that those are on our yard side. So we knew that we would have to do something to kind of help with our privacy. So we had put up a pergola. Kind of helps obscure those 3 windows. And then there's a frosted window that was their bathroom. Now it's all going to be family room. And they have 3 additional windows there that are above our fence height that will look right into our backyard as well. But what I noticed is that the back of the house has not a single window and it's 13.5 feet, which is also still part of that same family room. So my kind of concern or question would then be those 3 windows, rather than looking into our backyard, you still have the same number of windows. If they're put at the back of the house, then there's plenty of room for 3 windows to be put in there rather than, like I said, from a height above our fence, looking directly into our backyard again. So now there's 5 additional large windows and kind of a wall. I know that having a wall there, being a 2-story wall, is kind of a little harder to mitigate, but I'm sure from an architectural standpoint, you could probably do something. So it's not quite so much of, like I said, just a wall with the 5-foot setback. I know that's a little bit more difficult, but I feel like the windows would be something that could be changed relatively easily. Oops.
Great.
that would help reduce the privacy issues a
Okay.
little bit.
Great, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this item? Yes.
So Amanda Ryan, 7492 West Althea Court. And mine isn't necessarily, there are 2 things on this project that don't kind of meet the guidelines that get approved. And there are other projects of mine that I fought really hard for and don't get this kind of accommodation for. So my question is, I guess, at what point do you enforce the height that you can't go higher than the existing? because it was a head height issue in my project too, couldn't do it. We built it out, we couldn't go over the 35% lot coverage. And then the second project on here went over at 39% and this one's over, and that seems to be not a concern on people's side. So sometimes it's a project and it like kills your project, and other times it seems to go through. So I guess where is the line of consistency in the code you guys have in enforcing it?
So just to respond to the comment, and the guidelines are just that, guidelines, and we interpret each application on a case-by-case basis. Each case is unique. The circumstances for each one are unique. Not saying that's justification one way or another at this moment in time, but each case is considered individually.
But to like the justification of head height and, oh, it's better than it was kind of things, like those didn't work in our case. So it's just it's unfair. And the struggles you put people through and make us redesign and do all this stuff. And again, it's time and money on people's side, but it's not fair across the board. So maybe you're just getting more lenient and it's becoming more fair to some people, but maybe just remember that with the rest of us.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, could I respond to Ms. Ryan?
Sure. Yes, please.
Thank you. Ms. Ryan, I definitely hear what you're saying. I agree with you, actually, in many ways. And I think it's really important for us to remember as a commission that we are making impartial individual decisions on a case-by-case basis. And these are people's homes. These are people's livelihoods. And it's really important for us to keep that in mind. But also that as a commission, we do have the ability to make decisions when sometimes there's a gray area and it doesn't make sense. In a black or white, check this box, check that box type of situation. Also, Ms. Ryan, I would really encourage you, if you feel frustrated by this process, to get involved. And we, oftentimes have seats available open on the commission where all volunteers apply. And I would love to see you on the other side.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Montoto. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this application? Okay. With that, the applicant has the opportunity for rebuttal.
Amy Allgaier, 1402 North 22nd Street. First of all, I'd like to apologize to the neighbor. I was never given your feedback.
I'm sorry, I know it will be on record, but I assume since it wasn't on that summary as well. So that's why I tended to.
I apologize. Normally I get information from the neighborhood meeting and I didn't hear any of this concerns about privacy, which I totally understand. With regard to the bedrooms on the north side, they are egress windows. They have to be a certain size to meet that egress window. So I can't make those higher transom windows like we have on the south elevation. Those south bedrooms have a window at the front and a window at the back that can be those bigger windows. So we can put the smaller, higher windows on the bedroom on the south side. I can't really speak for my clients, but I would say they would be more amenable to shifting those that last bank of 3 family room windows around to the rear of the structure instead of having the 2 banks on the north side. I think that would help alleviate some of the privacy issues. Also, Leyland cypress, any kind of straight columnar cedar would help with those first-story windows for sure. The second-story windows are in a bedroom. It doesn't get a lot of use. It's mostly going to get use in the evenings and at night. So hopefully there's not going to be a lot of traffic in that room that's looking over into that backyard. In response to Ms. Ryan, I can't speak to what the other projects were or why the height was not okay. This is a non-contributing home. I don't know if the project she's talking about was contributing. That would have a huge difference. We are reducing the lot coverage from 40+% down to closer to 35. As I stated, there was no way to get a single car garage on this site and have us be 35%. And to some extent, that's a hardship. When we look at variances, they look at hardship to determine whether or not they're going to help this homeowner get what they need to have on their site. This is kind of the same situation. We couldn't have a garage here if we didn't attach it, if we weren't over 35%.
Very good. Thank you. Any further questions for the applicant before we close the hearing?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Sounds like you would be amenable to adjusting window placement. Would you also be amenable to increased landscaping to improve privacy?
Sure.
Cool. Thank you.
Any further questions before we close? Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So with that, we will close the hearing and render a decision. Open it up for discussion or a motion. I would start by noting that I think height, lot coverage aside, I think this is a very clever way to make the space, to make the lot, to make the house very functional, usable, and quite a clever way to make that happen.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion.
Please.
I move to approve DRH 24-00201 with the staff's recommendations and conditions for approval, and also add the following stipulations: that the project move the family room windows to the rear of the house, and that the applicant work with the neighbor to figure out some landscaping. I don't want to say what the landscaping is, just because I don't like cypress. So those are my recommendations, or my motion, I should say.
Thank you, Commissioner Malloy.
I second.
Thank you, Commissioner Owen. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Montoto,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Parks,
Aye.
Owens,
Aye.
Sales,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, item number 6, DRH 24-00206 at 1519 North 24th Street.
This is the aerial image showing the property's location at the southwest corner of Hazel and 24th Street. This is an aerial site plan just showing the house's location again. This is the project description where they're going to be replacing the existing metal siding with as proposed hardy plank siding and other aspects of possibilities of what might be uncovered, which will be alluded to at the end of the presentation and as was in the staff report. And here's some description. They were considering hardy shingles, but conditions were added to ensure that the best possible material is used for what they're proposing. Here's photographs of the property. The house is currently clad in metal siding. Once the siding is removed, it may be uncovered what the existing historic siding material was and its profile. Per the guidelines, for this guideline, the historic materials need to be identified first, and attempts to retain and preserve that material should be undertaken. If it's in a preservable state, that material should be protected and maintained and repaired as necessary. If it cannot be retained, maintained, and repaired due to its being missing or severely deteriorated or damaged, the preferred option is to design a replacement based on any existing information, such as remnants of the original feature. Ideally, the replacement will be identical in materials, color, and design of the original. However, substitutes may be used provided they are congruous to existing historic features. Since the existing siding may be uncovered and can become the basis for a decision to repair the existing historic siding or replacement of the damaged unrepairable siding, staff has added conditions to this approval to ensure that the final result is a visual match to what may be uncovered after the aluminum siding is removed, to wit, as was referred to earlier. These are the conditions added, that they will work with us to do discovery and then base what they propose on whatever is uncovered. If the siding is replaced or none is uncovered, then the new siding shall be, these are our general conditions, smooth fiber cement with no artificial grooves, et cetera, et cetera. That's our just general condition for that. And if no historic siding is uncovered, all replacement siding shall be lap siding, and that's in reference to that. They were considering hardy shingles in a previous iteration. If brick is uncovered under the existing metal siding, it shall be retained, preserved, and repaired. And if unrepairable, shall be replaced with matching brick. And with that, staff recommends approval for this application.
Great. Thank you, Richard. Any questions for staff?
Mr. Chair, I had a question for the staff. It looked like there was also stone in one of the photos for the foundation. Is that true? I know you said brick, but I wanted to make sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sandstone.
Yeah, sandstone.
So I think I would recommend that we also add stone in our, if we approve this.
That is the foundation, and what they're referring to is replacing the siding above the stone. So
Yeah,
it's
I was just thinking like if they pull it off and there's some additional stone
Okay.
used like on the
Sure.
porch or something that we wouldn't
Okay.
want to see that covered up.
Okay,
That's all.
sure, yes. That could be a commission added condition.
And this is one of my favorite things is when we pull
I know.
inappropriate siding
What's
off of
underneath?
historic
Can't wait to
buildings.
find out. Any further questions for staff? Great, thank you. Applicant is present. Please step forward, state your name and address.
Yes, hi there. Ryan Nunn, 1519 North 24th Street. So what we're looking at here is we are looking at some metal siding on the outside and some possible brick as we know it. The brick may not be covering the entire structure. There was some additions made, I don't know when, but prior to our purchasing the house on the backside as well. But what we're proposing is to not replace like for like on the brick. Upon initial inspection by our contractor, some of the brick had fallen out from underneath the initial, the top aluminum siding and come out, and the mortar was like sand in their hands. We've got some initial quotes that are very outside of our budgetary constraints to replace this. So we were proposing that we would work to accommodate additional types of siding with the commission because of the constraints placed on the brick itself.
Great, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Great, thank you. Neighborhood Association.
Sandy Herman, 1404 North 7th Street. Mr. Chair and Commissioners, we didn't we thought this was going to go to consent, so we agree with staff.
Great, thank you. I do also have Jen Nunn signed up to testify. Is there any, do you wish to testify?
Hello, my name's Jen Nunn. I live at 1519 North 24th Street. Yeah, so the reason why we chose this pathway of not replacing like for like is that we were concerned that it would go out of budget. So we didn't want to start anything that we couldn't complete, within meeting the standards. So, yeah, and I saw that it had said if it was brick, to replace brick for brick. And we're willing, that would be great if the brick was repairable within our budget and we could do that, that would be ideal. I guess our concern is taking off that aluminum siding and revealing potentially more than that our budget would cover. So that's a concern of ours. Yeah.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Did you have any questions for me about that?
Any questions for the applicant?
No.
Great, thank you. Anyone else wishing to testify on this item? And the applicant, you have the opportunity to come back up and closing rebuttal, closing comments if you wish. Your option.
No, I appreciate it. I do want to accommodate the standards and requirements of the Historic Society. And I think that our proposal is a meet in the middle type situation, whereas if the brick is not repairable, that we could decide on something together to make the house look appropriate to the standards of that neighborhood. I also want to say that brick being repairable, according to our contractor, is not necessarily can be done because brick has different consistencies now, different colors, different compositions than the original brick did. So most likely if a larger brick repair would need to be done, it probably would be a full replacement of the brick itself. Okay,
Great. Thank you. So with that, we will close the meeting, close the hearing and render a decision. Open it up for discussion.
So I guess I'll open it up, and I support staff's recommendations that they outlined in the staff report. I would recommend hiring a mason that actually works on historic buildings versus any old contractor, just because they have more expertise and they can tell you, they know sometimes like where to find that one-off brick that you might need to like fill a hole versus replacing all of it. But I'm going to support the staff's recommendations with the addition that we also mentioned stone in case there is stone uncovered as well.
And to that point, to your point of hiring a mason to do the work, oftentimes the mortar is the sticking point. You know, mortar, historic mortar is often a very different composition. When it's been covered like this, it may be even more prone to deterioration. And so that may be the sticking point, so to speak. So I'd also second that notion of an experienced mason contractor.
Commissioner, I also third on that and say I would make sure if budget is a concern and you are worried about the brick to maybe do a little more due diligence before you go ahead, even though I would like to see that metal siding ripped off because it looks out of place. Just proceed with caution if the brick is a budget buster.
Mr. Chairman, did we have a motion? I'm sorry.
We do not
Okay,
yet have an actual motion. No.
Okay, thank you.
However,
I'll make a motion. So I will motion to approve DRH 24-00206 based on the staff's analysis and findings contained within the staff report, with the addition to the one stipulation where if brick is uncovered, also add if stone is uncovered, that the same treatments will be followed.
thank you.
I'll second, Mr. Chair.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Montoto. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Montoto.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Parks.
Aye.
Owens.
Aye.
Sales.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Great. Thank you. Can't wait to find out what's underneath. All right, moving on to item 7, DRH 24-00209 at 1005 East Warm Springs Avenue.
Here's a site plan indicating where the property is located on the south side of Warm Springs Avenue between Maple and Walnut. This is the existing elevation without the dormer and the proposed elevation showing a front dormer. Here are photographs of the rear and a couple front photographs and one highlighting the general area where this dormer will be. Here are photographs of adjacent properties and the yard for this property. The applicant proposes to construct a dormer on the front elevation of a non-contributing residence. The materials and windows openings and window types are all appropriate. The windows and the dormer will be casement, which will help to differentiate the dormer from the rest of the residence. Materials to be used are conditioned to ensure that they meet our guidelines. With that, staff recommends approval.
Great. Thank you, Richard. Any questions for staff? Awesome. Is the applicant present? Great. Come on up, state your name and address, please.
Richard George, 1610 North 18th Street. I was on the approved agenda, but I wanted to make sure there were a lot of neat things here tonight. I wanted to make sure I listened to see how those things went. And I appreciate everybody's help and what you do. It's pretty important. But yes, a simple addition on a non-contributing. And they need light in the upstairs. It's been finished, had a low ceiling, and it's still going to be low, but we'll get what the owner wants.
Great. Thank you. And thank you for working with the
I was gonna
working
watch
with.
it at home, but I figured I'd use your air conditioner.
Thanks for coming. I appreciate it. And there had been concern that the staff reports had not gone out and everyone hadn't had a chance to see those. So we wanted to make sure to get a full,
I had
the
read
public
that.
hearing and make sure that everyone is
I
in
looked
agreement.
online,
And
but
okay,
wanted to, gonna watch it anyway.
thank you. Thank you. Any questions for the applicant from the commission? Great. Thank you. Anyone from the neighborhood association present? Great. Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I believe we did receive late testimony, late correspondence today for this application, and it was from the neighborhood association. Is that something that needs to be included on the record, staff?
If it was received as, I'll let Richard speak to that.
Ina did provide written testimony that was included. I can't recall the timing, was included in the original staff report, their email version of their testimony. And it could have been, actually it was after the initial, but it was a late correspondence that was received. That would have been provided as late correspondence.
Oh, thank you. On
Not
my
today.
end,
Not, there's no today. There's no written testimony would be, it's past the deadline. If something were to have happened after that point, it didn't, then it would be past time for it to be put into the public record. But in this instance, it happened in time for it to be in late correspondence, if memory is being jogged correctly on this one. I had a
Thank
few
you.
other ones to think through this time.
Thank you, Richard.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
we do have that, Cindy, as late correspondence from Ina.
Thank you. Mine is separate for some reason, but thank you for the clarification, Richard. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Yeah. Yes, I found that email as well, and I remember reading that. Okay. Any further questions for staff? All right, we'll close the public hearing and render a decision. Open to discussion or a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion. I motion to approve DRH 24-0029 with the staff recommendations or an analysis and findings contained within the staff report.
Thank you, Commissioner Malloy.
I second.
Thank you, Commissioner Owens. Any further discussion? Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Montoto,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Parks,
Aye.
Owens,
Aye.
Sales,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Great, thank you. All right, circling back to DRH 24-00128. We still have the applicant present.
Yes, they are present. And for everybody's remembrance, I'm going to run through the report real
That
quickly.
sounds like a good plan.
And then we can go to staff, go to the applicant.
Great.
This is the abbreviated version. I'm not even going to look at my notes. We know the site. There's the landscape plan showing the trees for remediation, where the tree that needs the trees trees that need to be removed to allow for the structure to be built. Floor plans, the elevations of what they're proposing, of course, the elevations of the garage, photographs of that side of the parcel. This parcel is a split of a larger parcel. and photographs of adjacencies. And there, of course, as we heard before, they're proposing to construct this new residence. The height of the roof peak will be 18 feet 9. The width is within the setbacks as required by code. This building is be similar in height and width. The mass and form are compatible to the residences in the vicinity. Materials and window openings are all appropriate. Lot coverage of 39% does increase, is over the 35% of the guidelines. 39% is over 35%. But they, the only other way they could have a similarly functional residence would have been to required that went under 35% would have been require a 2-story structure, which is not compatible with the small 1-story structures in the vicinity. And the garage will be substantially smaller in scale. The roof peak's 18 feet, a little under the height of the residence. And yeah, the materials are similar to the primary residence. As was stated before, staff recommends approval. And I'll stand for, well, I stood for questions. So we're on to the next thing.
Great. Great, thank you. And the applicant is present. Is the applicant present?
I'm present. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm here. Yes, and I apologize. I don't have video. This is the first of situation that I've done with this. So yes, I am present.
Great. Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Yep, my name's Ben Wakefield and I live on the bench. I'm at 4321 West Alpine Street.
Thank you. You have an opportunity to make presentation or any comment on the staff report or any other correspondence that may have come forward. Anything you wish to comment or state?
Yeah, pretty simple. I'm a small builder in Boise here, and I build a couple houses a year, on the bench, Collister, the north end. I will say, between the time I acquired this property back around the first of the year, it's taken me this long to get through some architectural renderings that I felt worked well with this neighborhood. I will say I want to do the best that we can. Within the property, I did struggle with the smaller sized lot and hitting that 35%. That was a real struggle for me. So I do have, I came up with some renderings. I worked with my architect. It took several months. And we eventually landed on the best fit for the neighborhood, being this slightly increased lot coverage. Like it was stated, to get the mat under the 35% in the master bedroom on the first floor, it required a second story, and that personally I didn't feel was compatible, and I also think that you guys don't feel is compatible. So that's kind of where we stand. And I am somebody that wants to work with a really good solution. So I'm not here just to build large structures and ask for handouts, but this is kind of where we landed. And that's what I got for now. And I'm happy to answer questions.
Great, thank you. Any questions for the applicant from the commission? One question or comment I had in looking at the renderings, it appears the house sits very low to the ground. One thing that the guidelines do recommend for new builds is looking at the foundation height of adjacent properties or similar structures in the neighborhood. And typically we would see a house like this raised up off the ground 18 to 24 inches oftentimes. Just to give a little bit of height to it, setting the building so close to the ground is not very typical of an historic district, and was curious if you had explored that or would be open to that notion, assuming if the application were to go forward, that you would be open to raising the house up off from being so low to the ground.
Yeah. And again, yes, so you can hear me. Yeah, so that was explored. One of the main deals with different architecturals was kind of the limited space on the lot. So if you raise the front, then for the for the patios, you have to obviously get back down to the patio elevation. I'm open to any height, really. My main thing was there's been some homes built with like 3 and 4 feet front porches, and I think a front porch in this neighborhood is really desirable and welcomed. So I wanted to create the most welcoming front elevation as far as getting into the house, and then obviously welcome for whoever owns it to get out of the house onto the back patio. So I'm open to really any elevation, but I felt the front porch was really desirable, and I wanted to make it the most welcoming. Adding steps, many steps to a front porch can kind of reduce the footprint of the porch. So that's kind of my thought process as far as getting a little bit lower. But again, I'm open.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any further questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question? Or actually, I rescind my question. I'll save it for our commission discussion.
Sounds great. Anything else? Open it to the neighborhood association.
Sandy Herman, 1404 North 7th Street. Mr. Chair and Commissioners, we join our neighbors in mourning the loss of the beautiful giant sequoia on this lot. Boise prides itself as the city of trees, and the significant mature tree canopy of this neighborhood is a key component to its charm and property values. While the applicant may profit from the development of this lot in a mature neighborhood, the surrounding neighbors will lose shade and natural beauty. We encourage the applicant to acknowledge the disappointment of neighbors by remediating with quality mature trees on site and going above and beyond the ask to contribute to the tree mitigation fund. Neenah Historic Preservation members attended the neighborhood meeting and expressed our concerns regarding this project. Our concerns at that time included the height next to 2 one-story houses, the 39% lot coverage, permeable paving, particularly the concrete walk around the foundation, as well as downshielded lighting. We explained the issue in the neighborhood with runoff from new construction damaging nearby homes. We reiterated these concerns in an email this month. We also suggested an oversized single-car garage in order to reduce the lot coverage. We are disappointed the applicant has chosen to not compromise on these concerns. We feel it's of particular importance to reduce the impact on neighbors when we look at new construction on smaller lots. And we are concerned accepting a 39% lot coverage will set a precedent with many of these smaller lots coming up for new construction soon. The lot coverage negatively affects the environment by not allowing for abundant landscape plantings and upping the odds that damage from storm runoff could impact on neighboring lots. We don't think it's a hardship to reduce the garage in order to comply with lot coverage. We do like the design of this house, and we think it's appropriate for the lot. We recommend downshielded lighting and permeable paving, and Neenah would like to remind the homeowner and contractors that materials listed within the accepted plans are part of an agreed upon contract with the city. It is important to adhere to the materials as listed, as they are part of standards in a historic neighborhood. Changing materials without consulting the city could result in fines, delays, and mitigation at the contractor or homeowner's expense. I'll stand for questions.
Thank you. Questions for the neighborhood? Great, thank you. Neenah is the only person I have on the sign-up sheet for this application. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this application?
I could comment unless my turn comes here in a bit. That's fine too.
One moment.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, we did have a hand raised kind of late. So Rebecca Hayes.
Rebecca Hayes, are you present and ready? Can you state your name and address, please? If you're there, we can't hear you. Ms. Hayes, are you there?
Mr. Chair, it is showing that she unmuted, but because we can't hear, there may be some technical issues, so maybe we can work on that for a moment.
Okay. Great. One moment, please.
While we're waiting, could I ask a clarifying question of staff?
Staff is there? Yes.
So Nina often asks for downshielded lighting in their testimony. Isn't downshielded lighting now required as part of the new zoning code?
I believe so. I would have to look into the specifics of how that is, but yes.
Okay, thank you.
I believe so. Belief is not verification.
Rebecca, you've been promoted to panelist. Can you try again?
Sure. Can
Yep.
you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Hi, so this is Rebecca Hayes. I did join into the meeting. There are a couple other community members here. And so I'm handing over the floor to a community member.
Okay, if that
Hi.
community member would please state your name and address.
Yes, sir. I'm Tracy Landauer. I live at 1010 North 23rd Street, a member of the community. I'm wondering, did the commission receive communications of any kind from neighbors or the community? And is this a factor in your decision? And if you did receive some communication, can you tell us the nature of it?
So the commission, we received late correspondence, a number of emails for this application.
Okay.
Yes, we received a series of emails in opposition from Tuthill, Wingert, Hayes, Abecker, Ebecker, Vaughn, and Landauer.
Okay, good. All right. Are you able to summarize the nature of the communications? And I personally share a lot of Nina's concerns on the property, particularly as regards that old growth tree. It seems a shame in the city of trees to just once again be taking down trees. And I did see the site plan for what the developer is planning to replace, at least I just miss the old trees. I have mature trees on my property, and I know what that would feel like if any of those were gone. Because once they're gone, it's really hard to replace a 40-year-old tree in terms of shade and those kinds of effects in the neighborhood.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to testify?
Not in this household.
Okay, great, thank you. And Josh, no one else. Okay, very good. The applicant, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal for any of the testimony.
Yeah, no huge rebuttal here. I just wanted to touch on a few comments that came through. Let's see. First of all, yes, there's a beautiful tree in the middle of the property. I am, I wouldn't say environmentalist, but I'm a forestry, college student and developer, builder. I don't like the term developer, but either way, I build a few houses and I like them to be really nice houses, fit for the neighborhood. But aside from the beauty of that tree, it is non-native, which I don't want to discount the beauty of the tree, but it does belong and thrives in a different climate. And the arborist report may show a few extra trees being removed, but that is the only tree on the site being removed. There's not multiple trees. There's a couple dead trees being removed, but that's the only live tree being removed. And it's not just being cut down, but it is being, I am paying extra money to have it mitigated, craned, and repurposed for building materials. I may use that tree to accent this house. So as the tree goes, I'm also concerned about the tree, and I'm doing all I can to mitigate that. For the building footprint, lot coverage, again, you know, I would be willing to look at downsizing the garage to single family. I have seen some of that go on in the north end, or sorry, a single car garage. I have seen that going on the north end. And personally, I think visually, as it fits for the north end, I think those really tiny, skinny garages look a bit goofy. I'm willing to do that. That would not get it under 35%. But my other concern with just chopping off little pieces of porches and such is that I just feel like it doesn't fit the overall goal of the design of the neighborhood. It feels like to me that, and again, I'm willing to maybe chop off the back covered porch, maybe do shade sales. I just feel like I just feel like there's some items that warrant maybe a potential overage of the lot coverage percentage based on the size of the lot. It's like it was stated, it's very difficult for me to get under that without going 2 stories. But again, willing to talk about it. Building height, let's see, the neighboring house is about 5 feet taller, or sorry, the actual ground of the neighboring house is about 5 feet taller. It slopes up dramatically, so this height is going to match or be slightly under the height of the neighboring house. Permeable pavers, willing to look at it. I love the idea with a basement. I think it would be it wouldn't be responsible for me to put permeable pavers right next to the foundation of the house, just because that could create future water issues. You want to, you know, shedding the water away from the house. And then like somebody stated, downshield lighting is part of the code, and we do that on all of our builds. So we're just here to work together, and that's about all I got.
Great. Thank you. Any questions for the applicant from the commission before we close the hearing? All right, hearing none. Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll close the hearing and render a decision. I'll open it up to the commission for discussion.
Chair or Mr. Chairman, it's been a long night.
Hey, yeah.
So I'm going to support this application. You know, we're a growing city. We need housing. And this is one of the ways that we can have housing. You know, the new zoning code, we have the tree mitigation fund. They're willing to plant additional trees on site as well. So, you know, as we grow, we need to compromise, and we are the city of trees. That's why we have a tree mitigation fund. I do like your idea, Commissioner Parks, of like bringing it up just a little bit so it looks more like a lot of the other houses in the neighborhood. So I don't know if that's something we'd want to include, but I'd be open to that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Sure.
I would like to see a reduction in the lot coverage. I hesitate to say exactly how that reduction needs to happen, but I've seen homes designed in the north end that are done so in a way that can meet the 35% lot coverage even on slightly smaller lots. I understand that this is a very small lot, so I'd be open to maybe even slightly exceeding that 35% cutoff, but I think given that it's a new build, I'd like to see a reduction in the lot coverage, especially because they're putting on such a small lot, a 2-car garage, 2-bed, 1.5 bath. It's pretty sizable, has like walk-in closets, walk-in pantries. There's just a lot going on for such a small lot, and it's increasing that lot coverage up to almost 40%. I think since we've already received a comment tonight, urging us to be more aware of how much we approve as far as lot coverage in order to maintain some level of consistency. I'd like to see a reduction from the 39%, not necessarily 35, but I'd like to see it reduced in order to better fit with what we've required and what the standards say as far as lot coverage that's appropriate.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I could respond to Commissioner Owens' statement because I most certainly had that same thought. I ran the numbers and we're really not talking about that much square footage. Though numerically it seems like that is a 4%, increase from our 35% maximum lot coverage. It's like less than 200 square feet. And given Commissioner Malloy's, statement on with our new zoning code, we do need housing. We do need this. If we were to take out a bedroom, which is essentially, where that 200 square feet comes from, it would essentially make this house not livable, which I think was kind of what staff was saying in their original analysis of this and what the applicant was saying as well. I think all in all, this is a great design for a new construction in our historic district. And I will be voting in favor of this project.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Owens.
In response to that, I do believe that having two bedrooms is appropriate for a new home. I would say almost any family coming in probably wants a 2-bedroom home. 1.5 bath is even better. That being said, I live on the bench and I have one carport for my parking needs, and that's something that we have to deal with. And we definitely don't live on a lot that's quite as small as this. So I think there's other places, and the applicant has even indicated that there's other areas that they'd be willing to reduce the lot coverage through. Like we just talked earlier today about not having a covered porch on a home to maintain a more minimalist facade on the front. So taking off the covered porch would slightly reduce lot coverage and would not impact the ability of the builder to provide housing or to build on this site. So I think there's probably other ways outside of just removing a bedroom that they could reduce the lot coverage. So I wouldn't be supportive of removing a bedroom to reduce lot coverage, but I'd say maybe one of the covered areas on the front or back, or one of the spaces for the garage would be more appropriate for reducing lot coverage.
Yeah, I would discourage removing the covered porch, especially on the front. I think the garage is probably where the reduction could happen. I acknowledge that this is a small lot. It is not a substandard lot, but it is a small lot. But you are correct in that there are the house does have a good bit of space in it, and then the 2-car garage in the back, that perhaps there is some point of compromise between 35 and 40%, where it could land and would not be unreasonable for filling a lot of this size. And then I would also encourage raising the house at least some dimension, just because homes in our historic districts, new or old, shouldn't sit on the ground quite as low as this one does, whether that be 12, 18, 24 inches, some number in there. Would elevate the house where it's not out of place and would not make an arduous climb up to the front porch or off the back porch, but would provide a good plinth for the home to sit on.
Mr. Chair, can I attempt to make a motion?
Please.
I move to approve DRH 24-00128 based on the staff's analysis and findings contained within the staff report, and adding that the house be raised at minimum 12 inches, no more than 24 inches, in order to maintain congruity with the houses around it.
I will second that motion.
Right. You have a motion and a second. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Montoto.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Parks.
Aye.
Owens.
Nay.
Sales.
Aye.
4 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carries.
Great, thank you. This concludes our agenda this evening. Thank you to all participants and commissioners and staff. It was a big meeting, so thank you.